Hello, let's do chapter 12, the developmental behavioral approach. Again, read the chapter. There's a lot of information that I'm not going to cover here that you need to get from the chapter. And a lot of this you should recognize because these are things we've talked about in Intro to Early Childhood Ed. We've talked about it in socialization and guidance. We've talked about it in program planning. So a lot of this won't be new to you. Using these approaches is good for all children. Being very specific and intentional about it is really great for children who have special needs. We know that there is some argument about how children develop, and we like to take the balanced approach that children develop based on their maturation physically, emotionally, socially, and also their experiences that they've had. So a child who doesn't have the physical maturity to walk isn't going to be able to walk. When they get there, they can walk, but they have to have had people helping them learn how to walk and seeing other people walking. Okay. So we're going to talk about how we provide the best approaches for helping children learn, children with special needs specifically, but think about all these things as you work with all children, okay? Key is making sure that children have successes. So if a child succeeds at a task or in an activity or in a situation, then they're more motivated to learn. So you need to set up ways for them to be successful. That doesn't mean that they can only be successful, because failing at something helps them learn resilience and to keep trying. So those are things you need to remember. The way you set up your environment isn't just where the desks and tables and bookshelves are in your classroom. Your environment is the schedule that you have, the way you work with your children, the things that you have in your classroom, all of that. All right. So you want to have an environment that is going to foster learning, that's going to challenge them, and also allow them to be successful. We as teachers need to remember that every child can learn. They aren't going to learn things the same way. They aren't going to learn things at the same speed, but every child can learn things. So you need to be responsive about that. Okay, reinforcement procedures. This is the ABCs. Antecedent is what precedes a behavior, B is the behavior, and C is the consequence. So the antecedent. So how does a child react when another child steals a block from him, for instance? The child A steals the block, and how that child B, the victim, responds is the behavior, and then what happens after that behavior. So if child A steals a block from child B, and child B, kicks and screams and beats up that other kid, then you need to have a consequence for that behavior, right? So negative reinforcement, we've talked about this a million times, right? Negative reinforcement is removing an unpleasant consequence. So if I'm not even going to try to explain it because it's so hard. It's like a double negative. Look in your book. There are good explanations for it in there. Okay. Intrinsic reinforcement is the feeling that I've done this well. That's internal. So it's my own motivation, right? Positive reinforcement is when you are saying, oh, you did a great job not hitting that kid when he took your block, right? A pleasant consequence. So children turn to adults to see how to react to behavior. They don't know how to respond to things. They need to see us. So all the time that we are working with children, we need to be appropriate role models, right? Teacher behaviors that have a strong impact on children are verbal responsiveness, saying, yes, I see you. Yes, I'm listening to you. Yes, you are meaningful to me. Yes, you are important. You are valuable. Yes, 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 I understand you. That's important, right? Descriptive praise. We've talked about this before. I'll put the article up there. Good job. Good job doesn't say anything. It does give a verbal response in that you're paying attention, but you're not saying what the good job was, right? So descriptive praise is, you did such a good job lining up today, or I really liked the way you lined up today, or, you guys are doing such a great job at putting everything away. Good job, good job, good job doesn't mean anything. It loses its meaning because we say it constantly, right? Physical proximity, getting close to a child so that they have this sort of bubble of focus, right? Physical contact also, just gently putting your hand on a child's shoulder to get their attention. Physical assistance, helping the child, and then providing things that children want. Those are the things that impact children and can positively impact their behavior, their relationships, right? Um, Natural consequences are those that occur without teacher intervention. When one child whacks another child, that other child might whack him back. That's a natural consequence. Another natural consequence is if you jump off the slide, you may get hurt. Logical consequences are those that are adult imposed. So when you bite your friend, then you have to go say, I'm sorry, go get ice, whatever. Those are not natural things that are going to happen, but that's the adult intervention. Um, okay, withdrawing or withholding reinforcers. The things that taking away a desired object as a result of a behavior. If I tell you again, if I tell you one more time not to run around the classroom, I'm going to withhold whatever. This is kind of bribery, and it's only effective if you do it as an actual thing and not as a threat, right? Um, it's not the best way to handle a situation, right? So, what you should do is ignore behavior that isn't harming anyone, right? If it's a harmful behavior, um, you need to step in. But a lot of these behaviors are attention seeking behaviors. So, if you ignore it, it will go away. Take away the materials that are causing the behavior. If your kids are hitting each other with bats, maybe take the bats away. I don't know. And that goes for a lot of things because a lot of things can turn into a lot of toys or, other objects in the classroom can turn into things that kids are using in a negative way. So it's okay to take it away if somebody is using it inappropriately. And then removing the child from the activity. Now, we think of this as timeout, but we need to be a little bit more intentional about timeout than just go sit in the corner. That doesn't help anything. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Incompatible behaviors are two behaviors that counteract each other and they can't be present at the same time. So you can't walk and run at the same time. So you need to talk about the behavior that you want to see, right? We always want to talk about the behaviors that we want to see and help children achieve that. What do you need to do to get a child to stop running in the classroom? Well, you need to teach them how to not run in the classroom, right? You need to talk about not running in the classroom. We talked about this a little while ago. Oh, no, that was in my other class. So, a lot of times we say to kids, use your walking feet. And if I'm 3 years old, and especially if I'm 3 years old and I have any sort of social or cognitive delays, I don't know what that means when you say use my walking feet, because in my mind, when I walk, I'm always using my feet. Get that? That's how a 3-year-old thinks about it. So simply saying to a child, use your walking feet is confusing and it doesn't tell them what you want them to do. So what do you need to do? If you have 2 and 3-year-olds, you need to show them what you want, right? You need to go out into the big room, take those kids and say, when we talk about walking and not running, we can run around outside because there's a lot of space and we won't run into each other. But in the classroom, it's smaller. And so we need to walk. We can't run in our classroom because we might hurt each other. And then if you really want to make the point, you can run and run into things and talk about how it hurts and how you fell down. This will make an impression on them. This will help them remember. And then when you see somebody running in the classroom, you can say, Jaden, remember when I ran in the big room and how I fell down and I got hurt? We can't do that. We need to walk in the classroom, right? And then once you've set that behavior, when you've set those expectations, because think of it, a 2 or 3-year-old who's never been in a classroom before, never been at preschool before, when you say use your walking feet or we don't run in the classroom, they may run all the time at home and not get in trouble for it. You need to show them what you mean and tell them what the behavior expectations for your classroom are. And especially with children who have special needs, who might have not have the cognitive ability to figure this out, might not have the social or emotional ability to understand how this relates to other people. And then you need to, when you see a child using his walking feet, walking in the classroom, remind them and praise them and say, oh, Jaden, look at you walking. You're being so safe and you're not going to run into anybody and nobody's going to fall down. That's awesome. I'm so glad that you remembered that we walk in the classroom. Okay, punishment stops a behavior for a minute, but it doesn't change that behavior, right? So when you have somebody who's running in the classroom and you say, hey, you need to stop running, right? Nothing happens. Okay, you're yelling at them and you're showing them that they can yell, right? So what do you need to do? You need to you need to go to the child. You need to, gently put your hand on the child and say, Jaden, do you remember when we talked about running? We can't run in the classroom. Do you remember why? So this is a lot harder than standing in the corner of the classroom and just yelling at behaviors that are happening throughout the classroom, right? It takes effort. It takes intentionality. It takes understanding how that child works. And that's what's super important about working with children who have special needs. You need to figure out each child and how to work with them, right? Punishment stops the behavior for a moment, but nothing is gained. That's you were running, you need to go sit down, right? What does that do? It doesn't do very much. It stops the running, right? Discipline guides the child to learn a new responsive behavior. So what we want to do is discipline children. We want to stop them from running and tell them why they should not be running and tell them what they should be doing instead of running. Okay. Remind, redirect, and reprimand. Okay. So remind them what they're supposed to be doing, show them how to walk, and then if they are not doing the behavior, stop them and tell them that is not what you're supposed to be doing. Can you remember what you're supposed to be doing? Sit and watch is a way of stopping the behavior. A lot of people think of timeout as sit and watch, or think of sit and watch as timeout, whatever. The most important thing is that you are not saying you need to go sit in timeout, right? And isolating a child and not giving him any input. What you are doing is you're taking the child who's doing a behavior that you don't want. You're sitting down with them. You're talking about, why did I stop you from doing that? What were the consequences of your actions? What should you be doing instead, right? So timeout isn't go sit down. Timeout should be sit and watch. Sit and watch is much more effective in keeping those behaviors from happening over and over again. Timeout is a last resort, okay? They don't learn anything. They may or may not even learn what not to do in timeout. Sometimes, though, you have to do timeout because you need the child to stop and you need to stop, and the situation just needs to be sort of, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but the situation needs to just stop. And so you can say, Jaden, I'm going to have you go sit in that chair for a few minutes until I finish up here, and then we're going to talk about what just happened. But the thing that is most important is to talk about the behavior that you didn't want to see, the behavior that you are trying to stop, as close to the occurrence of the behavior as possible. Because the farther you get away from it, if you're talking to a kid, at the end of the day about something that happened at the beginning of the day, forget it. It's not going to make an impression. You need to talk about it right when that behavior is happening. Step-by-step learning. In some of the assignments that you've done, especially the TAP program, you should have seen ways of helping children break things down into smaller steps, right? If you can do this one thing on this continuum of steps to doing this task, then you are building your confidence and success all along the way, right? So the smallest part builds success, and that keeps a child going. Observation and task analysis. This is watching a child to see what is happening and then stepping in. This is scaffolding, right? So you're watching how they're doing it. You're looking to see where they're needing help, and then you're giving them the least amount of help that they need to move on to the next step. Prompting, fading, and cueing. This is really important with kids, especially kids who have autism or children who have uh, cognitive development delays, who can't remember all the steps to do things. So this is, the hand washing chart. This is the schedule, the visual schedule in the classroom at the beginning of the day. So you're going to start doing this thing, and then after that, you're going to do this. Because kids can't read, you need to do pictures. This is for typical kids. It's really important to have in your group area a picture of what is the behavior that is expected in group area, so that you can remember, the kids can remember, and giving them reminders constantly of what you expect in the classroom. And like I said, you should be looking at each child individually. And there are children who are going to need extra help. Even children who are typically developing are going to get some of this stuff and not get some of this stuff. So you need to be constantly observing your children to see who needs help here, who needs help there, who's got this, who can you give cues to aid them, right? And like I said before, the timing needs to be close to the behavior so the child knows what you're doing, right? What are you rewarding? A behavior that was great? Are you talking about a behavior that was not great? Praise should be real and descriptive. Avoid using good boy or well done. Good boy, well done. You need to say, what was good? Why are you praising them? And it should not be just about you. So often we phrase praise as, oh, I'm so happy that I really like the way that you made me so happy. It shouldn't be about you. It should be about their intrinsic motivation. Like, you did such a good job. I could see that you were working so hard. What else? You really got that. You really were jumping rope like, like crazy. I don't know. But often when you have kids lined up in a hallway waiting to do something, or lined up on the rug waiting to do something, hands in their lap, crisscross applesauce, whatever, we do this, oh, I really like the way Jaden is sitting right now. Now, if you're saying that to Jaden, right, I really like the way you're sitting right now, what is that saying to Sally, who maybe doesn't have quite the ability to do what Jaden does, right? So we need to talk to each child individually about what they're doing well, right? Shaping is when a child is doing something that isn't quite there well, and you're reinforcing it. So they're talking specifically about when they're developing language. So they may not be saying the words correctly, but they are attempting to, and they are on the way. So you need to reinforce the attempts as well, right? Because it's important that kids have the idea that attempting to do something is important as well as actually succeeding, right? You were working so hard on saying the k sound, and you're going to get it. You are doing great. Children learn by watching, they model what they see. So all you do should be the things that you want to see your kids doing, right? If you don't want to see your kids yelling in the classroom, don't yell in the classroom. If you don't want to see kids being mean to each other, don't be mean to your coworkers or kids, right? The things that you do are the things that they're going to do. So you have to be very, very careful about them. We talked about this a little bit. Comparing children's progress doesn't help them, right? Um, Talk about them individually and where they are. Oh, that's it. All right, on to chapter 13.